Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
The kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Attention to all our valued brothers and sisters. Maulana Timol and team wants to express our heartfelt gratitude for entrusting us with your Qurbani. It's with great pleasure that we announce that your Qurbani was successfully performed. We extend warm wishes to you and your families, and we hope you had a joyous Eid. Jazakallah for choosing Maulana Timol and team.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
SANZAF's Meals Distribution Project aims to create food security for those in need. By supporting our program, you can help us in our mission to provide access to nutritious meals on a daily basis and help us extend our reach. Join SANZAF in the fight against hunger by contributing to our food security initiatives. To learn more, visit sanzaf.org.za or call 011 834 6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, the time is just gone 13 minutes past 8 as we continue with the broadcast this evening, and it is the second half of the discussion that we are having, and major concerns as to what has been unfolding in Jenin, in particular, where we've seen the brutality of the Israeli military operation once again unfolding and unraveling. And at the same time, we will be unpacking and unveil the timing and the motives behind this invasion. My guests tonight are Baha Hilo, who is a Palestinian-based activist, and also Usama Nazal, Jenin-based journalist with us this evening. So it's time now to welcome both my guests onto the show. I see Baha Hilo is up on the screen. Baha, and to you, Osama, as well. To both of you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Alaikum assalam. You're welcome.
Alaikum assalam.
Yes, obviously we need to unpack and we need to unveil what is taking place in Jenin at this point in time, and also taking a look at the seriousness of the situation, and also the damage, the terrorizing of families, Bruce occupation has been storming the homes in the Jenin camp. And we've also seen, rubber bullets. We've seen indiscriminate shooting. And all of this actually taking place. And let's just try and understand what has been playing out, Baha, just by way of an introduction in terms of the way you're reading into the situation, and just to see what is taking place in the Jenin camp.
Well, what has been happening in Jenin refugees camp in the past 3 days is a continuity of like the savagery of the founders of the state of Israel, like Israeli government and Zionists, that started with the expulsion of those families and refugees camps since 1948. Let's remember, we're talking about 15,000 Palestinians who are members of families that were expelled from nearly 54 Palestinian communities. So what is happening today is like the process of maintaining that crime that the founders of the state of Israel have brought upon Palestinian families. Of course, between the years 1949 and 1967, those Palestinians in that refugees camp in particular were ruled by the Kingdom of Jordan that has a truce with, or had a truce with the state of Israel in 1967. The state of Israel followed those Palestinians into the places that they were expelled to, and maintained their denial of access to their families' property and denial of access to their homes and villages that are located within 30 kilometers maximum from where the camp is located. From 1967 up until today, the state of Israel have been bombing and murdering Palestinians into submission, especially in the refugees camps. The reason refugees camps have been turned into hubs of rejection of Israeli oppression and hubs of rejection of Israeli criminal behavior is because we are talking about families that were robbed of everything and being ruled by the exact same criminal regime that have robbed them of everything. The criminal behavior that we witnessed in the past 2 days also is not exceptional. Since the beginning of January of this year, the Israeli criminals have invaded that camp in particular 20 times and have murdered more than 40 people, including the 13 Palestinians that we have buried today. So what is happening is a continuity of the same savagery that the state of Israel continues to honor and continues to uphold. For us, this is just like another day of witnessing another act of criminal behavior carried out by this savage regime.
Definitely. And also, we'd like to bring Osama into the discussion. And Osama, obviously, talking about brutality, and this brutality that has been unfolding for a very, very long time. And this, again, when one looks at the policy of the Zionist occupation, it is about displacement. It is about forced migration, as we have seen with the creation of the illegitimate state of Israel. And once again, this aggression that is conducted in the Jenin camp just reinforces what this Zionist occupation has been doing all along.
Yeah, this is what Israel about, really. Israel doesn't want to see or hear any Palestinian resisting its occupation of the Palestinian land. And the refugee camp of Jenin is the symbol of the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian fight against occupation, against colonialism, against oppression and injustice. It represents the free voice of Palestine, the Arab and Muslim world, the free voice of every individual on this planet, refusing submission and refusing oppression and suppression. That's why Israel is trying to crush the Palestinian refugee camp of Jenin by storming it on regular basis, by demolishing the houses of the families living in this refugee camp, these families that were expelled from their native and original villages and cities in 1948, when the colonial regime of Israel was invented by the Western colonial powers at the expense of the Palestinian people. As we know that the residents of Jenin refugee camp are coming from the villages and the cities that were occupied in 1948. So Israel is not leaving them practicing and exercising their right to normal life, even in the refugee camp. It pursues them, stripping them of the right to have housing units, of the right to live in freedom and peace, and demolishing the roofs of their houses over their heads. So the message that Israel is communicating to the Palestinian people is that if you fight against colonialism, against occupation and subjugation, then you subject yourself to warplanes bombs, to tank shelling, and to fire bullets, just as we have seen over the past 2 days in Jenin city and its refugee camp.
Yes. No, I think uh, these last few days, Baha, the whole question surrounding trying to expel the residents of the Jenin camp, and for those who refuse to leave, they're going to be sitting ducks, because this is going to prepare them for prepare the Zionist occupation of killing everyone who actually is going to remain behind in the camp. So this is how grave and how dangerous this situation is right now as we speak.
Well, expulsion and displacement is the name of the game. Like nearly 66.7% of the entire Palestinian society have been subject to displacement and expulsion. And many of us have experienced expulsion, which means losing everything once, twice, 3, 4 times in one lifetime. Like, let's remember that Jenin refugees camp have managed to rise from the ashes of the destruction and flattening that was carried out by the criminals of the State of Israel back in the year 2002. Let's also remember that 2 people of the 13 that were murdered were just babies during the destruction and flattening and leveling of the camp back in the year 2002, and the rest were not even born when that happened. The point of Israeli savagery and Israeli terror attacks and Israeli criminal behavior is to make sure that Palestinians are not going to be safe as long as they remain in Palestine. They will continue to be expelled. They will continue to be robbed of their family's property. They will continue to be subject to oppression. And any of those who express rejection rather than submission to that criminal behavior will be murdered. Like the State of Israel does not like it when the subject of its oppression reject it. So like many of the people, like imagine having to expel people from a refugees camp that was created because of expulsion. So like it means like wherever you are expelled within Palestine, you are not going to experience safety, even if you were completely submissive. Like many of the people that were murdered were children who were not even involved in the armed resistance. Also, when we are talking about the armed resistance in Jenin refugees camp, like out of 15,000 people, we're talking about less than 100 individuals, which means less than 1% of the entire population of the refugees camp expresses rejection of Israeli criminal behavior through violent means. You know, what the State of Israel wants is 0%, not only 0%, but the State of Israel wants us as subjects of its oppression to provide safety and security to Israeli criminals while they are actively murdering us. So here we are not talking about your typical criminal. We're not talking about the same savagery that was experienced in South Africa up until early 90s. We're talking about a savagery that is beyond what we have experienced in oppressed societies around the world, and in particular in Palestine. So the name of the game is dispossession. The name of the game is displacement. Displacement means like terrorizing families to the point where they feel unsafe, to remain at home, so they escape. Is the point of like the criminal behavior of the 70,000 criminals that have established the state of Israel in Palestine, terrorizing people, making sure that there is no safe space for any Palestinian in Palestine. So that's what they have been doing. That's what they were established on, and that's what they have been maintaining. And their criminal behavior, their savagery, the bulldozing of people's homes, the terrorization of people within that refugees camp is just like another one evidence added to piles and piles of evidences that we have been compiling over the past 75 years. And it will go on, like maybe like not tomorrow, but like this is the same circle that keeping crushing Palestinians like in and out until complete elimination. Because obviously, like the displacement of 66% of us is not enough for those criminals. They want complete elimination of the Palestinian people. And we are watching the massacre happening, like it's not that the eyes of the people in the world and governments around the world like don't witness and don't look at what's happening. It's like it's happening before your eyes for the past 75 years, and it will continue to happen as long as the fate of the Palestinian people is left in the hands of those savage criminals.
Exactly, Baha, and also looking at our situation in South Africa under apartheid, Osama, it's actually child's play compared to what we're actually seeing in Palestine, and has been the case for over 75 years, as Baha had actually pointed out. Because once again, we find that the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli army, are encouraging an exodus of people. And we know that they are for 75 years for the atrocities, for the many, many atrocities with brutality, with every type of savagery that one can actually think about or imagine about. And this is exactly what Israel is all about. And this is what they are trying to actually sell to the rest of the world, that these are isolated. But again, the plan, and because this is exactly what for close on to 75 years.
Yes, for sure. The Israeli plan is clear, and the Israeli government and the Israeli top officials of the current rightist extremist government have expressed that explicitly, really, as the so-called Minister of Home Security, Benny Gvir, said that the Palestinians have three options. Either they accept the Israeli occupation and keep silent on whatever Israel does against them, or they leave Palestine and live in any other Arab country or any state around the world, or the third option is killing. We kill them. He has expressed that rudely. And the Minister of Finance, Smotrich, has said while he was on his visit to Europe that there is nothing called people of Palestine. So it is clear that Israel does not recognize the right of the Palestinian people to exist. And when someone denies your right to exist, this means that they have on their agenda one item, which is decimation, ending your existence. And this what Israel is practicing these days based on a clear scheme carried out by both the government, represented by its ministers and its formal army, and the Israeli militia that is represented by the Israeli settlers, who are these days armed to the teeth, storming the Palestinian villages, burning the Palestinians' houses, and damaging the Palestinians' properties. And these numbers of Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem in particular are increasing on regular basis. Today we are talking about 800,000 Israeli settlers living in the occupied Palestinian territories, and the colonial settlements are expanding according to a blueprint plan set by the Israeli occupation government at the expense of the Palestinian land. So, what happened in Jenin and Jenin refugee camp is just one ring of the Israeli series of crimes that are planned and expected. And of course, Israel is implementing them before the eyes of the so-called international community. Before storming Jenin and its refugee camp, they set fire to the village of Hawara 2 months ago. Just weeks ago, they set fire to the village of Turmus Aya near Ramallah, killed a Palestinian American citizen, as this village, the majority of its citizens have American passport, but the American passport was not enough to spare them the Israeli crimes and the Israeli uh, war. So we are talking about a systematic plan, about a systematic policy agreed upon by all the Israeli parties these days, whether the rightist or the leftist, that the Palestinians have no right to exist either in Jerusalem, the West Bank, Gaza, or in the historic land that was occupied in 1948. So it is a matter of denial of the right to exist.
Well, certainly, Osama and also Baha, as you pointed out, going back to 1948, and we know that with the Jenin refugee camp in particular, as you mentioned, thousands of refugees, many who are the descendants of those that were expelled in 1948. And I'm sure that this latest development, this latest round of brutality and atrocity that is being committed by the Zionist entity has actually brought back many bitter memories of the Nakba in itself.
Yeah. Well, Brother Nayat, is like we need to just recognize reality and just stop talking about Nakba as a historic event. The catastrophe that was brought upon the Palestinian people and upon our families is not a matter of history. It's happening, it continues to happen, and it will continue to happen as long as this regime is in charge of Palestine and the Palestinian people. Nakba is Arabic for catastrophe, and it's man-made catastrophe, and this catastrophe keeps being reproduced day in, day out by this savage regime. We know in Palestine that we learn a lot about the brutality of the savage regime of South Africa. We've learned a lot about the Sharpeville massacre. Like we have been experiencing a Sharpeville after a Sharpeville every month of every year for the past 75 years. Like Nakba is not, a historic event. We need to stop talking about it as a historic event. It's an ongoing event and will keep going on hand in hand as long as this regime is in charge of or allowed to have power over the land of Palestine and the Palestinian families. What shocks me the most is like every time a Palestinian is murdered, somebody here or there comes out saying like how shocked they are by this brutality. I'm shocked by the shock. It's not like this. These are like natural outcomes of the behavior of the state of Israel. Blood, massacre, murder, dispossession, colonization, you name it. These are natural outcomes of the Israeli fascist and savage regime. They have been happening throughout my 43 years of life. They have been happening throughout the 75 years of my father's life. They will continue to happen in the lives of my nephews and nieces. They will continue to happen. As long as the state of Israel is ruled by criminals like Ben Gvir or like this Ukrainian Smotrich guy or this, whatever, like as long as the Israeli regime continues to uphold a fascist ideology like the ideology that they are upholding, which is the ideology of Jewish nationalism and social nationalism and so on, we are just waiting to witness another day of wasting the blood of the Palestinian people. We exercise, we witness every moment and every month of our life, we witness a Sharpeville in Palestine. We witness the massacre of Palestinians every single day. Like, those are not shocking outcomes. Those are the natural outcomes of Israeli control over Palestine and the Palestinian people.
Yes, and also some what my South Africa, and just in the world, has the world truly appreciate that it's ongoing each and every day in our life. And the reason why even in the United States of America, I actually read an article which was in the New York Times talking about Jenin being a long legacy of Palestinian armed struggle, talking about terrorist hubs and all of this. Now, this is what the world is being sold. This is what the world is actually believing. Yet, it is very, very far from the truth. And does the world truly, truly appreciate that this catastrophe is an ongoing catastrophe each and every day for the last 75 years?
Yeah, I think that the United States media and the United States government and the whole world recognizes the truth that the Palestinians still live an ongoing catastrophe because of their creation for the colonial power of Israel, but they don't want to admit that they knew that truth because of the capitalist system and because of the economic and the political interest that they have. Because we know that Israel is classified as the United States baby in the Middle East. And all that the United States government cares about is its own interest that are guaranteed by the existence of Israel in this region to which it is strange. Israel does not belong to this Arab Islamic region, but it is implanted by the colonial Western governments. So we are not surprised by hearing statements from different American officials and reading articles on different American media outlets showing their support for Israel and their promotion of the Israeli Zionist narrative that is fully fake. But if we look at the other side or the other angle of the situation, we see that the public opinion is different due to the social media outlets and to the Palestinian young generation that is using the social media platforms well and delivers to the American public and the Western public in their own language the Palestinian message and the truth and reality of the Palestinian situation. So we are talking about two perspectives. We have the imperialistic, capitalistic, official perspective that is fully supportive of Zionism and Zionism crimes against the Palestinians. And we have the public opinion and the pro-justice activists who support the rights of the Palestinian people and to stand against the policies of their governments. But until now, their influence is not tangible and not concrete. We hope that one day they will have enough influence to change the political directions of their governments when it comes to the suffering and to the cause of the Palestinian people.
Yes, and also Baha, we're talking about international reaction, international opinion, but the key issue here is we know, as far as the United States of America is concerned, we know the Western nations, what their position is. But we have got a Muslim world, well over 50 countries, right across the entire Muslim world. We are 2 billion strong, right across and the reaction of Muslim expectations on the part of Palestinians on the Muslim world in their struggle for self-determination?
Well, I would agree with Osama. Like in terms of public opinion is shifting. In terms of governments, you know, the like Muslim and Arab nations are powerless. Let's face it. If Muslim and Arab nations were empowered enough to help with the liberation of Palestine beyond words and money, they would have been helping us beyond words and money. Words and money is not what brings us, what brings us liberty. In the end of the day, the state of Israel is enabled by and supported by every government that hosts an Israeli embassy. Those governments support, like for example, you are mentioning the United States of America. Like the United States of America is always known for supporting like fascist and dictator regimes that go within their orbit. It was only 2 years before Nelson Mandela was died, he was removed off the list of terror from the United States of America. So what's happening is that we do not have governments around the world that would, put the liberation of the Palestinian people as a top priority by cutting ties with governments that provide support to the state of Israel because they are weak. That's it. We are not going to be liberated by the current, let's say, stands. In the end of the day, we do need a radical stand from, Muslim and Arab nations. We look at a country, for example, like Malaysia, that have been imposing political sanctions on the Zionist regime since 1948. We need more countries like that. We need to set up an example that it's possible to the so-called Western world to impose sanctions on this criminal regime and expel its ambassadors from every single capital on the planet. This whole talk about, we need peace between Palestinians and Israelis sounds exactly like we want peace between apartheid and the subjects of apartheid in South Africa. You can't have peace between like a fascist and savage regime and the subjects of that savage and fascist regime. Those fascist and savage regimes need to cease to exist so the oppressed people can have a chance for liberty and freedom. The way those things happen is in direct action in which there is no diplomatic cover, there is no economic cover, and there is no military cover for this regime to continue to exist in its current form. But like when we're talking about popular support, like of course, like any decent person on the planet can tell who the oppressed and who the oppressor are, But like solidarity with the oppressed is like my solidarity with a homeless person somewhere on the planet. It's meaningless. What we need is direct action. We need to start looking at the addresses of Israeli embassies around the world and expel those ambassadors from every single capital around the world. And I'm talking to you in South Africa. It's still a shame, for a country that managed to liberate itself from fascism and apartheid and continues to host a representative of a fascist defender of apartheid regime in Palestine. It's still a shame. Once South Africans realize how shameful it is, I'm sure they will be able to expel the representative of the state of Israel from the from the soul of apartheid, from the soul of South Africa. And as Nelson Mandela said it clearly, like like South Africa will not be free as long as Palestine is not free. It seems to me like to be a little bit confusing that a country that celebrates the collapse of apartheid on its soil supports and maintains diplomatic and economic relations with a regime that continues to uphold apartheid policies and regimes in Palestine. So we need direct action. We need to start targeting targeting like the embassies of the state of Israel all over the world, and demand the expulsion of the representatives of this fascist regime from every single capital on the planet.
Yes, Baha, I think very, very profound in terms of what you're saying. And I think the whole question about expelling Israeli diplomats from the country to Osama. And I think Baha makes a very important point, because as long as economic ties are maintained, as long as cultural ties are maintained, as long as some ties in whatever form are maintained with this Zionist entity, they will continue acting with impunity. You're looking at the South African scenario, for instance. It's not only diplomatic ties. For a very long time, Palestinian activists in this country have been telling the country a simple thing like no visa requirements for Israelis visiting South Africa, yet you want visas out been made to the government. The whole question surrounding control at South African airports, Mossad, Israel agents at South African airport. These are all issues that have been brought up over and over again. There is an issue of a school in South Africa that sends their students down for military training to join the Israeli armed forces. These are issues that have been taken up at the highest level of government in this country over and over again by Palestinian activists. So when one looks at it on the ground, South Africans on the ground, particularly those that identify with the Palestinian cause, those that are activists in the Palestinian cause, have been making these noises. But sadly, it has taken a very, very long time for our government to react. We have got certain politicians that have been lobbying for all of this in Parliament in itself. And at some point in time, obviously, the politicians need to sit up, take notice, or they are not obviously concerned about what Nelson Mandela said, that South Africa cannot be free if Palestine is not free.
Brother, let me just comment on that. Like, there is a very, very sick norm in politics, which is like the government of South Africa does not support or have diplomatic ties with the state of Israel because of its oppression of the Palestinian people. You know, that's not the reason. The reason is more sick than that. They have those ties despite of Israel's like savagery towards the Palestinian people, you know, and that stand to support an oppressor despite of their oppression is more sick than supporting an oppressor because of their oppression. Like the United States of America supports the state of Israel because of its ongoing elimination of brown Palestinians. You know why? Because the United States of America upholds white supremacy as a norm. But like when we come to South Africa, the stand of South Africa is more sick than that, brother. They support the savagery of the state of Israel despite of their brutality and despite of upholding and keeping apartheid alive on this planet. So like we need to name things by what they are. And yes, whatever effort is taking on the streets of South Africa does not result on the complete, you know, expulsion of representatives and supporters of the state of Israel from South Africa. That kind of action is meaningless and needs to continue to be empowered until you succeed in expelling the representative of the state of Israel from South Africa. You know? So like the position of supporting Israel's savagery despite of its oppression and elimination of the Palestinian people is a sick stand that needs to be addressed and needs to stop being normalized.
Yes, I just like Osama's comment as well, Osama.
Yes, really, we can't deny the warm and historic relation between the people of Palestine and the people of South Africa, and the relationship between the late president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, with the Palestinian late leader, Yasser Arafat. And the statement by Nelson Mandela was echoed by our colleague and by you, that the freedom of South Africa is incomplete unless the Palestinians complete their freedom. But really, we are shocked and disappointed by the position of the Arab governments that are normalizing relations today with the Zionist regime, turning a blind eye to the Israeli atrocities against the Palestinian people in Jerusalem and against the holy sites in the occupied city of Jerusalem. As you know, that the Israeli excavations under the basements of Al-Haram al-Sharif, the Holy Mosque of Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, have been continuing for years, and it could collapse anytime these days because of these excavations, in addition to the elimination of the Palestinian neighborhoods in the Holy City, like Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan and other neighborhoods, and replacing them with Jewish colonizers coming from the West and other parts of the world. The Arab regimes turn a blind eye to all that and to the massacre that was committed 2 days ago by the Israeli occupation army against the refugee camp of Jenin, and they normalize relations with this regime, and they open their economy and their capitals for the Israeli officials whose hands are stained with the blood of the Palestinian children and the Palestinian people. So, what is shocking is really the position of these regimes who open their countries for the Zionist colonial power that is going one day to occupy their countries, not necessarily by the military means, but by the economic and other ways the colonial powers use to impose their control over other countries. So these regimes and these governments that the Palestinians are really disappointed by.
Well, thank you, Osama. And also, I think, Baha, not very long ago, just immediately after the Bahrain, we had the opportunity of hosting just out of Palestine. Her name was Abir Zayad, and she obviously highlighted what Osama has been saying with regard to the destabilization of Masjid al-Aqsa and what is going on, and also the longer plan. And we know that the Zionist lobby is a very, very powerful lobby in each and every country. We've seen their reaction to Abir Zayad's visit to South Africa as one of denial, saying that she did not know what to talk to. But the key issue here for the Palestinians, and I'm sure, Baha, you know it, and perhaps you can even expand on it, that you know who your friends are. Osama spoke about the Arab world, those that have got friendly relations with Israel. But as Palestinians, as activists, as people that are fighting for a free Palestine, you know exactly who your friends are around the world and who are not your friends.
Like, of course, like in any situation of oppression, those who stand on the side of the oppressed are the friends of the oppressed. So who stand on the side of the oppressed Palestinian people, regardless of what Palestinians use in their disposal in resisting this kind of merciless and brutal and savage oppression, like, yeah, those are our friends, you know. And we, of course, know who are the friends of our oppressor, like all those countries around the world that supply our oppressors with the diplomatic, economic, and military means to maintain that oppression. Those are not our friends. You know, they are the friends of our oppressor. Like we have leaders of white regimes all over the world who continue to express their gratitude and support and unconditional support to Israeli criminal behavior day in, day out. Like we had this lunatic from the EU who was congratulating the state of Israel for making the desert bloom, as Palestine was ever, a desert. Like we have winter that makes this desert to bloom every single year. Not the state of Israel, but like we know who are the friends of our oppressors. We know who are our friends, but also we know that there's a whole lot of people who choose the side of our oppressor by remaining neutral on the face of this brutality. So the massive majority on the planet are not our friends. The massive majority of the people on the planet are confused, neutral, or supporters of the brutality of the Zionist regime in Palestine. So like we can try to fight racism with facts. We try to fight propaganda with truth. We try to stand high against the brutality. We continue to survive Israeli oppression and will continue to be inspiring. Like among us, you will continue to have inspiring survivors, but also you will find like depressed or depressing like survivors, like those Palestinians who want to have some kind of like diplomatic or peace, with their oppressor. Like you continue to have that, but the long story short, oppression is not sustainable on the land of Palestine. The past 6,000 years, sorry, have witnessed the rise and fall of nearly 23 different civilizations. The current regime is one in a long line of failed oppressors, and the exact same fate that faced previous oppressors will face this one. But in the end of the day, like the failure of this regime is not going to happen on its own. The failure of this regime requires drying the resources of this regime from all over the world. We are oppressed by racist people that are imported from all over the world, not from one side. Like the Bengavir, like a fascist that Osama mentioned, like he's not white. He's worse, he's like the black enslaver because he's an Arab. His family are Iraqi, So like you have something like some of the most emboldened like fascist criminals who are in charge of our lives, and they are emboldened because the resources to support their fascism are open, made available, are and unconditional. So what we need is, once again, we need this regime to be exposed for its new true nature, and we need it to be sanctioned. Like apartheid South Africa was more powerful than Israeli apartheid, and it could not survive 4 years of sanctions. This regime is not going to survive more than a year of sanctions, So, like our friends, we hope that our friends will grow in number and will grow in strength and will be able to start shutting down Israeli embassies as soon as possible.
We've got about 2 minutes, and I just want to go to both Baha, you and Osama. Osama, starting with you. Just final thoughts, please.
Yeah, my final thought, my brother. The situation the Palestinian people are facing is not easy. The Palestinian land is cut off into cantons. You can't move it from one place to another. Every day there is an Israeli massacre against a certain place in occupied Palestine. Gaza has been under the siege for about 16 years and more. Jerusalem is being beleaguered and at risk. Israel is getting support from the Western government. Regrettably, some Arab governments are determined to continue normalization with the colonial regime of Israel. Despite all this gloomy and bleak image and this frustrating situation, the Palestinians will continue to resist, will continue to fight back, and one day they will achieve their freedom just as South Africa achieved its freedom. Thank you.
Yes, inshallah, Allah willing, it will happen. And also, Baha, just final thoughts. You've got about a minute.
Well, final thoughts is we will continue to survive. We are not meant to be defeated by this oppressive regime. And as long as there is one Palestinian standing on this planet, he will stand as evidence of the failure of the savagery of this criminal regime. It's our duty to recognize oppression in Palestine. It's our duty to reject it by any means necessary. And I stand before you proud that we do have so many of us who continue to stand up against this and continue to reject the brutality and savagery of the Israeli regime every single day of our lives. Thank you so much for having us, Brother Unite. And inshallah, like as South Africa managed to free itself from the brutality of apartheid, we will manage to free ourselves from the brutality of Israeli apartheid. Thank you so much.
I mean, Jazakallah khairan so much to both of you, to Osama Nazal and Baha Hilo. We do appreciate you taking time out, and we need to apologize. We know there have been a bit of a sound break problem as well. Appreciate your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Baha Hilo, Palestine-based activist, and Osama Nazal with us. Real powerful analysis coming through in the aftermath of, once again, a brutal, a savage military operation that had been unfolding in the Jenin refugee camp. And again, once again, looking at the motives behind all of this that has been playing out. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. So for now, from myself and the team, it's Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.